Everybody get up, ladies and gentlemen, because it is time to slam now. We have a real jam going down, so it's my pleasure to welcome you all to that song from that movie. Marco.
Hello.
Thank you for joining that song from that movie, The Journey Through the Very Best and Worst of Movie Songs. I am your basketball reference host, Dietrich, and today we're joined by a person who promises to never date Madonna again, Alex.
I wonder if he came true on that. I don't know enough about Charles Barkley to know if he kept that promise.
Is it Charles Barkley that says that line?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure it is. Yeah.
And we're also joined by the Up, which Bugs Bunny is always talking about, Ben.
Oh, I get it. Yeah,
that was a clever one. That,
yeah,
right?
I was definitely.
Right?
I had to think. I don't know if it's clever, but I thought.
I will take that.
Big fan of basketball, are you, D?
Huge fan.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not spent the past 3 weeks watching nothing but football. Yeah.
I mean, so have I, but it doesn't mean I don't know nothing about basketball.
Well, but what have you been watching this week?
Ooh.
Football.
What about you, Alex?
I did actually watch the Mitchells and the Machines.
Oh, what did you think?
Which I thought was quite good.
Did there's a part that's fantastic and worth the surprise?
You know,
think it was worth it?
Do you know what? Like, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I was like, when I was watching, I was like, I wonder which part he's talking about. I mean, I can guess obviously, but I don't know if I want to ruin it for everybody. But I think I know which part. But it was a good film. It was a good film. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the two robots, the ones where they lose their program.
Yeah.
I did watch the Bourne trilogy again.
Trilogy?
Yeah, I thought, isn't it four?
No.
There's 5 of them.
We're not doing
There's
this.
5, Ben.
We're not doing no. Things end after 3. In my life, Tokyo Drift was the last one, and it ended on a high.
It's a good one to go out on.
No, there's no more after the third one. The rest are shameless.
So I wrote these notes up a couple of months ago,
Ah.
and I put, to celebrate the release of the long-awaited Space Jam 2. That might have come out like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I've got no idea.
I have no idea what's going on at the cinema.
I don't think it has, but
Okay,
maybe.
well, let's pretend it. Let's just pretend. Okay, so to celebrate the release of the long-awaited sequel Space Jam 2 featuring LeBron James, we're going back to the original Michael Jordan effort, Space Jam, and all of its accompanying songs. So, Alex?
Time for some history.
Some history. The new one is called Space Jam Legacy, by the way, I believe. Not Space Jam 2.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. The original Space Jam came out in November 1996. Relevant news to that was that Kobe Bryant made his NBA debut in the same exact month.
R.I.P.
I feel like that's possibly as relevant. I mean, he's played his basketball.
There's a basketball reference.
He's a basketball reference right there. In musical reference, Spice Girls released their debut album, Spice. Now, come on, guys. I know that probably you two had this album.
I mean, I was too young to even remember. Someone probably had it for me. There's many a home video of me dancing away to Wannabe.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I had 2 younger sisters. The album was probably in the house somewhere, but I didn't get it myself. I had Robbie Williams instead.
Instead. Like, it's one or the other.
Yeah, it's one or the other, yeah.
It's one or the other.
It's a British household. It's one or the other.
It's one or the other. In toy news, the first Tamagotchi was released.
Ooh.
Brilliant.
Now, I bet you both had one of these, though.
The first sign that I had that I could not look after a life.
How's that going?
Well, the dogs lasted 3 weeks.
Okay, well, that's just...
Longer than any Tamagotchi I ever had. Well, is Tamagotchi the name of the device or the creature that you grew?
Moving on. No idea. I felt this has maybe come up before, or certainly we've talked about this gentleman before, but Bill Clinton defeated Bob Dole to retain the presidency. Bob Dole. And in movie news, because this is also a movie podcast, 3 films were released. So probably more, but 3 of them.
For 3 we care about.
Well, one I assume D would be interested in, which is Star Trek First Contact. Is that a film that you've seen and or enjoy?
Yeah, it's one of the best ones.
Which one's that, D?
That is the second Next Generation film.
Yeah, it had a picture of Patrick Stewart on the cover. The English Patient was also released in this year, which would of course go on to win Best Picture the following
Very similar film to Star Trek First Contact.
Yeah, and to the next film, Space Jam.
Also very similar to The English Patient.
All three starring Patrick Stewart. Probably.
How much better would Space Jam have been if it had Patrick Stewart in it?
Patrick Stewart is Michael Jordan.
Or Patrick Stewart is Lola Bunny.
I'm really trying to think now, are there any characters that cross over? The only one I think could possibly would be Bill Murray. Was Bill Murray in Star Trek First Contact?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it was one of the ball.
Because I know for a fact he wasn't in English Patient. But yeah, Space Jam was released in November 96. Let's talk about it. So, Space Jam is a live-action animated sports comedy film, which is, I mean, I don't know how many of those there are, probably the only one. Like I said, is like there are others. I imagine it's the live-action / animated sports comedy film.
Until Space Jam 2.
Until Space Jam 4.
Oh,
obviously.
yeah.
Well, we don't know because we don't know how funny that's going to be. Might not be a comedy.
More in line with The English Patient, this one.
Live-action / animated sports drama. There's a ring to it, doesn't it? So Space Jam, the original, was directed by, I want to say Joe Pitker, but it could be Piker.
I think it is Pitker.
So apology, is it Pitker?
Yeah.
And it stars Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes. The film depicts a fictionalized account of Jordan's basketball hiatus.
What?
Well, I mean...
Fictionalized?
The word fictionalized was used on a certain encyclopedic website that I went on. Maybe they misused it, I don't know, but that is the term they used. The film depicts a fictionalized account of Jordan's basketball hiatus between 93 and 95, in which he takes up baseball before being abducted by the Looney Tunes in order to help them win a basketball game against the aliens of Moron Mountain. Sounds good already, obviously, for those who haven't seen it. What you've been. But what are your guys' thoughts?
So, I guess normally when we ask this question on the podcast, it usually sort of elicits not so much a review as more of a story about our relationship with the movie over the years.
Definitely, yeah.
I'm sure that's quite annoying for people, but that's going to be the case here again, I'm afraid.
I think that's what people want to hear. They want to know Dee's connection to Space Jam.
Well, I've written this down, so let me take you back to the 90s in the UK.
Ooh.
And a little-known cable TV provider called NTL.
Oh.
God.
So, on NTL, and it's the one before it was digital, so it's like the analogue version of it. I don't know if you guys remember this or even had the service.
Yes.
NTL allowed you to watch like premium movies, like new releases, for a charge.
My dad was never paying that.
Well, and the way you would do it is you would tune your TV to the channel. There was like 5 movie channels, and you would stay on that channel for more than 5 minutes. You would be automatically charged it.
Right.
If you went off the channel, it would then scramble.
Right.
So as a child, what that obviously meant to me is that I learned that if I watch like the first 4.5 minutes, I can watch the first 4.5 minutes of anything, turn it off, and it doesn't cost anything, and I've got away with it. Well, Space Jam was one of these movies, and I got my timings wrong.
Oh, no.
I didn't know this at the time, so like I guess after like 6 minutes or like 5.5 minutes...
You couldn't count.
Well, yeah, or I was too busy playing Pokemon at the same time, probably, on my Game Boy. I don't even know if that timeline lines up.
Your time I got you.
Yeah, by the time I got you, it was dying at the time, so I was a bit
listening to
while listening to his Robbie Williams soundtrack.
Yeah, so I got my timings wrong, but I didn't know at the time. But I found out when my parents received the cable bill the following month.
Oh dear.
So my main memory, other than generally being shouted at and getting grounded and things like that, was a comment that my dad said, which was, if you're going to pay without my permission, at least watch the whole movie. Which is a proper Yorkshireman mentality.
Yeah.
Tattooed on your back now, I imagine.
Yeah, it's sort of seared into my brain. If you're going to steal something, steal the whole thing.
So you would download a car.
Get your money's worth. Exactly, yeah.
And have you since seen the next 1 hour and 20 minutes?
So yes, so I eventually did get to see it when, I don't know why it was on TV, or if maybe... Or it might have even been a case that you still had access to it for a month because you've already paid for it, and I was forced to watch it. If you paid for it, you're watching it.
I'm imagining like a Clockwork Orange situation where you tape to a chair now with your eyes open.
I mean, I don't remember being particularly impressed with this movie as a child. I think it's mostly because I didn't get any of the basketball stuff, but like it had Looney Tunes in it, so that's good. But if we fast forward many years, I watched the movie back for the first time as an adult, like in preparation for this a couple of weeks ago. Still didn't get any of the jokes from the basketball players. Like the Madonna line I've already referenced. I'm assuming that's a reference to something in Charles Barkley's life. Don't know. But I thought like most of the Looney Tune characters didn't seem to be themselves, especially Tweety Pie, who seemed to be some sort of like weird, like horny bird for the entire thing. So my opinion of this film is not great.
Right, cool.
Terrible.
That was quite a story, I'm sorry.
It was. No, I enjoyed it.
As always, Dee has his finger right off the pulse of the British public. I loved this film as a kid. I still... Is it proud? Yeah, it's proudly. I'm looking right now at the 4K steelbook that I have magnified to my wall, literally above my window. Right between the greats of Amelie and Easy Rider is a steelbook of Space Jam with, brilliant. It's beautiful. Mwah. I haven't watched it in a while since I bought that steelbook. I loved this as a kid. It held a place in quite a high regard in my family. I had the PlayStation 1 game that I played a lot with my cousin. I always made sure I was the Looney Tunes because they had the best sort of slam dunks, finishing moves, and the Monsters, there was only 5 characters. So, fortunately, I was the eldest that I could choose that. Anyone knows that the classic, yes, my controller's plugged in and yours isn't sort of tactic. But yeah, I love this film. I think, in a way, when I think of Michael Jordan, as much as I know he is the superstar that he was, probably one of the greatest sportsmen of all time, if anyone's watched The Last Dance recently, I knew him for this film. And maybe he was just as good as a baseball player as he was a basketball player to me as a child. I would have taken anything because he could clearly do it all. And I had strong opinions of it and don't want to challenge that now by watching it again.
So it feels like my finger is not too far off the pulse there, Ben. It sounds like you suspect it's on the pulse.
But it's because, it potentially is, but I don't want to know that I've got, arrhythmia, like I've got an irregular heartbeat. I just want to live knowing that at one point in my life, I had a normal heartbeat. I enjoyed this film, and I would like to stick with that enjoyment.
Fair enough.
I can relate to a lot of those points you made there, Ben, especially about Michael Jordan, because I feel like this is all I knew him from. He could not have actually, to me, he could have actually not been a real basketball player. He could have just been a man in this film. and
100%.
That would have been enough for me. Because basketball is not big in this country.
No.
At all. It's pretty much non-existent. It's interesting the points that you made, Dee, actually, about the Looney Tunes, because that was an actual criticism that a lot of people levelled at the film at the time, in terms of the characterization of the Looney Tunes characters and how they were very different. And even though the film it received kind of mixed reviews, the main criticism was about that from most of the reviews I read. I think they felt that they hadn't gone far enough. And I think if you watch those cartoons, they are quite... I mean, obviously they're from a lot, I think the original ones 1930s and stuff like that. So there's from a very different cultural period of the world, but it's they're a lot more risque, should we say? They're certainly a lot more adult in themes and things like that, which is just kind of non-existent in this film. But I'll go into a few facts if you want.
Yes, please.
I know we like facts.
Always.
So it was the first film released by Warner Brothers Feature Animation Studio, interestingly. It grossed over $250 million worldwide, making it the highest gross, which I like this fact, it's the highest grossing basketball film of all time. It's got to Coach Carter, maybe?
High School Musical 3?
If that gets classed as a basketball film.
I don't even know if he plays basketball. I've not seen it.
I feel like it couldn't be that, because surely that probably grossed more, I imagine, than this. Who knows? The film does have interesting origins, though. So it actually came out of 2 Nike adverts, which were directed also by Joe Pitka. Did we say, Ben? Did we agree on Pitka?
Yeah.
One which was titled Hair Jordan, which I think deserves an award in itself, in which Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny star. So there was 2 adverts that they both starred in together. Warner Brothers were quite reluctant for Nike to modernise the Bugs character, but after the success of
because we hate money.
Well, I think they were concerned that it would damage the property if they wanted to do something with it in the future. But actually, it was
this.
Yeah, well,
no, we're waiting for something bigger than Michael Jordan.
I know. When I read that, I was like, what actually were they waiting for? I don't know. But they realised that Bugs Bunny still had relevance and was to a contemporary audience, and he was still liked. So that actually caused them to greenlight or option this film. I don't know when they made the adverts, whether there was already some beginnings of a film somewhere that had been proposed, but they greenlighted it after that. But actually the film did get shelved for a while during Michael Jordan's real life retirement from basketball between 93 and 95, but then was brought back when he started playing again in 95, so kind of mirrors that gap in between that's in the film. Pitka said it was difficult to get actors on board, as no one really wanted to work with animated characters or a sports player, and I can see that being quite a difficult pitch. Which is kind of why the only real people of note in the film are the basketball players, and also Bill Murray, weirdly, and Larry Bird.
And the guy from Jurassic Park.
Yes, and him as well. We'll come on to him now, actually. So he is called Wayne Knight, which I found out today, and the role of Stan was actually originally planned for either Chevy Chase or Michael J. Fox. Now, I assume Michael J. Fox was only an option because his first name is Michael and his second name is Jay, so maybe they thought it was Michael Jordan's Fox. And they thought it would be nice synergy, but Warner Brothers didn't want either of those two people, and so they really went for that guy from Jurassic Park. Like, two really famous people, Chevy Chase, Michael J. Fox. No, we'll go for this guy. So the character that's played by, or voiced by Danny DeVito, who is actually called Swackhammer, who is the boss of the aliens.
Did not know that.
Yeah, it was originally a live-action role, and they planned to give it to Dennis Hopper, which I think would have added a lot.
Can you imagine, like, Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet, like, put into this film? The oxygen mask and stuff.
Voiced by Danny DeVito.
Yeah, that was literally the vision I had when I read Dennis Hopper. I was like, the oxygen mask and like, the intensity. I think it would have added a very different tone to the film. But obviously it changed last minute. It was actually changed last minute, like it was one of the very last things they changed about the film. Then they cast Danny DeVito as the voice. And he's actually the only celebrity voice actor in the film. So everyone else is just kind of like from the voice actors from the industry. No, there's no actual names for any of the voices. This was an interesting. So producer Ivan Reitman spoke to Robert Zemeckis about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which of course is kind of the other, when you think of like cross animated live action, is probably the other film you think of. Looking for tips, and Robert Zemeckis responded, "Don't do it. It nearly killed me."
What an image. I mean, to be fair, if you look at most of the films later on that Robert Zemeckis did, he basically killed his career post-2000, so maybe it actually did.
Yeah, it didn't nearly kill him.
I think Polar Express killed you, Robert.
No, what was that other one? Was it Aliens Need Moms or something?
Yeah, Mars Needs Moms.
Mars Needs Moms that you were talking about.
Yeah, that was the nail in the coffin.
You see, I don't know if this is a surprising fact or not, but this film has more special effects shots than Independence Day.
Well, Independence Day actually happened in large parts, Alex.
Yeah, of course.
It's a documentary.
When you said Bill Clinton beat Bob Dole, he actually beat
Bill Pullman.
What's his
Pullman? Bill Pullman beat an alien in the face. So I've written on here Lola Bunny ? Did you two find her attractive?
Don't think so.
Isn't the real question who's hotter, Lola Bunny or Jessica Rabbit?
No, they're both animated.
In which case, you put me in the Lola Bunny category.
Elmer Fudd.
Fair.
I'm all about the Fudd.
You're a Fudd man.
I'm a big Fudd man.
I thought you were going to say the granny lady for a second there. I'm a cheerleader. The film, as Ben already mentioned, kind of was a merchandise phenomenon. Had video games, Happy Meal toys, etc. And the franchise is estimated to be worth $6 billion. Which is kind of remarkable considering it's just one. I know obviously there is Space Jam Legacy coming out soon, but considering it's just one film, it's quite a large number. And the film itself only made $250 million, so all of that is afterwards on toys, t-shirts, whatnot. It's a bit mad.
That's incredible. I think that's why I'm really curious about this new film. Because, I mean, we're also in a lockdown and the whole world is recovering from a huge pandemic, so there's obviously that to factor in. But just, Michael Jordan was already a phenomenon. Not just in the States, but like Air Jordans were huge. He was a recognised name. This film didn't make him. Whereas LeBron James, I feel like, is often compared to Michael Jordan on a basketball sense as like a skill. But as for a brand, he's nowhere close. And so I'm assuming Michael Jordan had a pull alongside Looney Tunes, which, like you said, were still current and relevant. I'm pretty sure they're not at the moment. I don't think they'll have the same pull. It almost feels like the sequel is targeting our generation of that, know the original film, or incredibly niche basketball fans, that are aware of LeBron. I just don't think it has the same pull. I'm just really curious to see if it bombs.
Yeah, and it seems weird to me that the trailer, because I've not seen the film, is almost downplaying the Looney Tunes references. It's more Game of Thrones. You guys have seen that, right? Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
It seems like they're using all of anything that comes under the bracket of Warner Brothers, aren't they? With it, because in the trailer there's all sorts of random stuff that is related to other TV shows or films and things. So it does almost seem like they're using the idea of Space Jam to connect to people our age. Yeah.
Yeah, because like Agent Smith pops up at one point.
Yeah, it's an odd looking film.
It feels like Wreck-It Ralph 3.
Yeah, it does have a very Wreck-It Ralph kind of vibe. I thought that exact thing when I was watching the trailer, really. Very odd. I wonder how it will do. I wouldn't be surprised if it
I don't think this is going to make the LeBron brand. The LeBrand.
The LeBrand.
If you will.
I won't.
Or can you say the LeBrand?
Ooh.
Yeah, would it just be LeBrand?
LeBrand.
Like some sort of really sort of highbrow French chic.
I mean, should they have called the film Space James? But I don't think that sounds
Glad you're not on the marketing team.
Space
James. Oh. James Jam.
Oh, let's talk about some songs, shall we?
Let's do it.
So, kind of going to talk about them in terms of their ordering or chronological order of when they appear in the films. So, the first song that appears in the film is actually I Believe I Can Fly by R. Kelly. It appears in two different parts of the film. It's in the opening scene, which is what I'll talk about first, where a young Michael is shooting hoops in his back garden and not missing a single one. And then it also appears at the very climax of the film when Michael Jordan appears out of an alien spaceship onto a baseball field. So, obviously, there's controversy about R. Kelly, so we're not going to talk about it in too much detail. But do you guys have any comments about the song, but kind of more to do with its relationship to the film rather than just like about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic song, like a powerful and hopeful song. And I hope other people agree that it's sort of grown to have a legacy of its own outside the movie and hopefully outside of its singer.
It's a really interesting argument because I was listening to this song earlier and I loved this song as a kid. It has quite a lot of relevance to a lot. My family loved it and it would get played at certain occasions and it was huge and really powerful. And yeah, that's, as is the case with a lot of R. Kelly's discography. And I was listening to it and I found myself thinking about the song. I can't seem to like it enough. I can't seem to connect to those same memories without the tainting of R. Kelly, the man who has, everything that's happened and come about recently. And I found myself it was like metacognition. I was thinking so much that I just couldn't connect on that emotional level anymore. And I found that a real shame. But when I watched the version with the scene of the film, I could still connect to the emotion that I have with the film. Like I said, I've not watched the film back recently, but I rewatched that scene, and I could still connect to that, and I still found a bit of joy and a bit of love. Like when the young Michael running up to the hoop, and there's that sort of those little musical notes. But I can't watch it with the music video of R. Kelly. I can't even just listen to it by itself with the Space Jam logo because there's an element of tainting it. I can't enjoy it separately. I think people can enjoy art separate to the artist, and I rather they should be able to, but I can't. I've realised. And I find that a real shame. And I hope that the one day I do bust that steelbook off the wall, that I can watch it without thinking about R. Kelly and just enjoying it in the film because, yeah, it is a really good song.
Because I guess it does bring up that conversation, doesn't it, about whether you can separate the art from the artist and that whole shebang. Mm-hmm. And I think it does, like you quite well put there, Ben. It comes down to a personal decision, doesn't it? And it's some people will be able to separate and still enjoy the song on whatever level they want. And other people, I think, like for me, similar to you, I can't listen to this song without thinking about that conversation, and then that kind of ruins it. And even when I was watching the film, it was the same. It was kind of like,
that's interesting.
Because I knew that I was going to be thinking about it. I automatically thought about it. So I think that kind of, for me, does suggest that I can't separate it because I can never listen to a song by someone like that without thinking about that other situation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult one because it's the song that everyone really associates with this film, and kind of when we 100%. Went, and I know that we all kind of enjoy the wider soundtrack, and I'm sure a lot of people do. But I think if you were talking about a song from this film, that's the one that most people would remember or would relate it to. So people might think it's an odd choice that we're doing this film, but it's kind of because we have an enjoyment of the wider soundtrack, and me and you really enjoy the film. No, Dee doesn't have as good a connection with it. But there's a couple of facts about it. So actually it wasn't meant to be the lead song from this film.
Okay.
That's interesting. When I was watching it, both times it was in the film, the beginning and the end, I felt like it was a late addition, especially the end one. It doesn't seem to fit with the scene. It's supposed to be quite a triumphant moment, but the song's quite small in terms of its sort of emotional. Small's the wrong word. It's quite intimate.
It's a slow builder, isn't it?
It's very observant of you, Dee, because it was a late addition to the film.
Yes.
So actually, what happened was Michael Jordan and R. Kelly. So the quote on one of the pages that I read said that they were hooping together. So I don't know how that happened, but they were both hooping together, or they hooped together in Chicago. And Michael Jordan.
Oh my God.
Because I'm thinking
There we go.
That's it. Let's another conversation.
It's actually because in my notes I've written MJ. MJ, Michael Jordan asked R. Kelly if he wanted to do a song for the film that they just made. So R. Kelly watched the film and picked up on this idea of him flying through the air. Obviously, that's the big moment at the end of the film where he flies across the basketball court, and there's references to it at the beginning of the film. One of the other songs makes a lot of reference to it as well, which we'll come on to in a second. So that's kind of where the lyrics come from, and that's why the song probably feels like it was shoehorned in late. I think they knew what they had with the song, which is probably why it features twice, but it wasn't initially intended to be a lead song from the soundtrack, and actually wasn't the first released as a single from the soundtrack either. It featured on quite a lot of lists, as you can imagine, because it was such a big, huge song at the time. Rolling Stone put it in the top 500 best songs of all time. I mean, it was quite low on that list, but it was still in that list, which I thought was quite an accolade. It won 3 Grammys. Dee, I know you'd be interested in that. It was a number 1 hit in the UK. It wasn't in the US. It actually only got to number 2. It was It Couldn't Unbreak My Heart by Tony Braxton. But it is still R. Kelly's. Yeah, probably is, yeah. It's still R. Kelly's best-selling song, even though he had multiple number 1 singles. It was still his best-selling in the US. But yeah, so we'll move on from that, because I think we've kind of skirted around talking about it sort of in a hopefully respectful way. But we'll move on to the next song that features in the film, which is entitled Space Jam, and it's by a band called Quad City DJs.
I mean, if there's not a more sort of like late 90s, early 90s title, it's that.
Quad City DJs. Yeah. So this song features immediately after the opening scene in the opening credits, when there's a bit of a Michael Jordan b-ball montage where he's just like dunking on people for fun and playing basketball generally. Yes, what do you guys think of this one?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think without the opening sort of line, that everybody's get up, it's time to slam now, is it? Mm-hmm. That sort of bit, I really sort of remember that, and it kind of gets me sort of energized and pumped, especially with the scene. Like I say, I'm not a huge basketball fan. I was, at some point in my life very interested in it, mostly through the EA games, but how the montage is done of, I guess, the progression of Michael Jordan from a kid, from that scene that we've just seen with where he's making that first dunk, you assume, or he's just going to absolutely miss it. But then it's sort of his quick rise to fame of the huge success he had with the Chicago Bulls. It's incredibly energizing. I really like it as sort of setting up the film and the pace of the film, because it is incredibly fast-paced. Like, there's not much of a lull. Obviously, you want it to rush ahead to get to the point where he's in whatever the Looney Tunes world's called. But it moves very quick, and I think it starts from that point, because the first scene with I Believe I Can Fly is quite somber and slow and supposed to kind of hit with that emotional note, which the film doesn't have many of. and then it just goes. It's like, right, come on, speed up now. This is about MJ. Yes, flies on air. His whole thing is that he's the greatest of all time, and let's get pumped, let's get energized, let's get ready. And this song does that very well.
100%. I think I have previously said that Let's Get Down to Business was the coolest song we've ever covered. Well, I think it's time for Lieutenant what's his face to step aside, because Lieutenant Donny Osmond to step aside, because this is officially the coolest song we've ever done, and it might even end up being the coolest song we'll ever do.
Could be.
It's going to be tough to top. I think in my head, this is the soundtrack to all basketball matches ever.
Yeah, to be fair, it could be, couldn't it? Like the opening, after they do the... Or is that ice hockey? The charge.
If I ever bought a ticket to an NBA match and this song was not played at some point whilst I was there, I would ask for a refund.
You've got to assume that every basketball court's adopted this song, hopefully.
Yeah, you would have to, because it is... Yeah. I wonder if this film, that's quite interesting, I wonder if this film had an impact on basketball. Like, in any way, did they adopt those kind of... I know the shirts were incredibly, like, successful.
Yeah, they were,
like,
weren't they, the basketball tops. I'm sure my brother had one.
Yeah, I mean, I would buy one. I know Spike Lee's worn a lot.
I'm sure my brother got one from, like, a market in Spain or something.
Yeah, probably. Down in Bridlington.
So, did you say Spike Lee had one? That's
I
interesting.
swear I've seen Spike Lee with one.
Spike Lee actually came up in my research because he originally pitched to help write the script for this film, but it was due to some controversy over how he'd funded Malcolm X. I didn't look into the detail. Warner Brothers wouldn't allow him to write the script for it. This is quite
interesting. I know he's famously a huge basketball fan, and I think he's a huge MJ fan.
That script later became Crash.
God.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually have many facts about the song because there wasn't a lot on there.
No.
But it had a great music video. If you guys, I mean, what's interesting about the music videos for all of these songs is they all feature clips from the film. It's an odd one, really, because you usually have that one title song, you maybe have another song that's in the film, and they kind of utilise clips. But I think literally the main 5 songs, every single video included clips from the film in some way. And this was no different. I think it does really work well in juxtaposition to that opening scene, this montage. Like you said, Ben, like the first song kind of is supposed to add that emotional depth. Whether or not it does that or not is up for debate. But that's kind of the emotional centre of the film. And then you immediately just get the impact of this amazing 90s dance sort of R&B track. And the sort of flashing credits as well. And it seems to go on forever, but you're almost like, you don't care. Because it's like, this is the film. This is the film to me, this opening credits. And actually probably for you as well, Lee, considering you only watched the first 6 minutes of it back in the day.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I was so enthralled by this intro that I forgot to look at my watch.
I mean, I was just thinking then that the actual credits. I think we covered Rocky 3, was it, where it had that really great opening montage.
Oh yeah.
And this is kind of in some ways reminiscent. I know it doesn't have Clubber Lang sat in the stands watching him at every second, or Swackhammer, as that character is called, or whatever it's called in this film. But if you didn't have a clue who Michael Jordan was and how good at basketball he was, you're probably pretty clued up after this opening montage. It does a very good job of bringing you into that world, I suppose, but then to immediately cut it off when he announces that he's retiring and going to play baseball.
And it cements it in like a form of reality, because it is, Michael Jordan did, after his sort of three-peat, after he won the NBA championship 3 times, he quit, making, this entire sort of fictional world in that sort of period, and then he comes back and plays baseball at the end, is very clever. Even to me as a child who hadn't got a clue what was going on, I knew Michael Jordan probably by name as a basketball player. I hadn't got a clue about what he did, but thinking about that and watching that scene back, they do it really well to almost place it in reality, to give it a sense of to give it a connectedness to probably what a lot of American audiences knew.
And with that, Bell, ends part 1 of our look at Space Jam. We'll be back next week, next Thursday as normal, with part 2 of our look at Space Jam. Unless, of course, you listen to this way off in the future, in which case, it's already live, it's already there. Just go and hit play. It's going to be great, I promise. See you next week. Bye! So, Ben? Oh, no, shit. Is it Alex?
Yes. History.